All right, so I am here with David Zuckerman, the Lieutenant Governor of Vermont. He ran as a Democrat, right? But you are a progressive, right? You ran.
Actually, I served for 14 years in the House, straight up as a progressive. Then I ran for the state Senate, and I ran in the Democratic primary and got the progressive write-in. So I served as a progressive/Democrat for 4 years. And then I ran for lieutenant governor and did the same thing. I defeated a pretty tough field in the Democratic primary. Also won the write-in on the progressive ballot against someone else who put their name on it, so that I would be able to again run with both. And I run as a progressive/Democrat and serve as the highest elected, I believe, third-party official in the country.
Very cool. And you also stated you're an organic farmer.
Yep, raise about 20 acres of organic vegetables. We raise about 1,000 chickens, about 35 meat laying hens, and we raise about 20 or 40 hogs a year.
Awesome. I'm very against factory farming, so that's good to hear.
Fair enough. It's all pastured, so yeah.
Cool. So if you were to describe the state of the United States right now, where would you say we're at? How would you describe our current condition?
I would say there have been cracks in the foundation of our democracy for quite some time, but those are growing into fissures at this point. It's really a scary time in some respects. The concentration of power, watching Congress and other political bodies overrule the will of the people over and over is becoming really quite scary. On the other hand, I was fortunate enough just a few days after I got inaugurated as Lieutenant Governor in January of 17 to speak to a massive Women's March rally, the biggest rally in most people's memory, at least in Vermont. 20,000 people on the State House steps, shut down 3 exits on the highway. They weren't letting anybody else in because there was nowhere for the cars and the people. And across the country, that was huge. And I've continued to see public engagement at a level that I hadn't seen in the prior 20 years. And Vermont's a pretty grassroots place. There's often been engagement, and it has stepped up a notch. And I'm seeing, I don't travel around the country a lot, but what I see through social media and the news and others, the level of engagement I think is probably scaring the political establishment, and that's probably a good thing because the political establishment has been so dominated by corporate money, and we need to get real everyday people into office. And I believe in building from the ground up, get people into city councils and mayors' offices, run your government efficiently and effectively to help local people, get rid of some of the cronyism and sometimes the over-expensive contracts with connected companies and firms, turn that money into action for everyday people, improve people's lives, and get up into the higher levels of government and turn it over so it's really working for everyday people again, which it hasn't been.
Absolutely. What would you say, or if you would address any issue in the United States today, what do you think is the most pressing issue or pressing thing that is threatening us as a country?
Money in politics. If you get the money out, and we did public financing for all offices or something to that effect, and we truly had campaign finance reform, get rid of corporate donations, then everyday people could serve. And if everyday people were serving, then we could really address so many of the issues from income inequality, things like universal health care, deal with affordable housing, jobs and wages and fair wages and equal pay type legislation, as well as climate change and really structurally shifting our economy to one that relies on renewable energy, one where we look at reducing our energy consumption, building buildings in more efficient ways to take advantage of sunlight for lighting as well as energy, more public transportation options for people so that they're not so reliant on single occupancy vehicles, but people have to get to work. So I would say climate change and income inequality, because income inequality then also leads to issues like social and racial inequality issues. Ultimately, as long as people are struggling, they're going to point the finger at somebody else. They're going to point the finger at the other, and we'll continue to be in these tribal mentalities that unfortunately President Trump is exacerbating in a horrific way. But as long as people are struggling, someone else is going to be to blame. We're going to start pointing fingers instead of holding hands and figure out how to get through these struggles together.
Divide and conquer. The ruling elite love that.
They're very good at that.
Absolutely. And one final question. Do you think these problems could be solved within the existing framework of the two-party system, or do you feel we are going to have to form a third party, a breakaway party? I mean, you did run for lieutenant governor within the framework of the Democratic Party, but overall, do you think that's the way to go, or do you think we're going to have to totally, secede and form another party?
Well, no, in Vermont, we've established the most successful third party in the country. We have 7 legislators in the House. There are 3 progressives and, in fact, 5 legislators affiliated in the Senate out of 30. In fact, 2 former Democratic majority leaders in the Senate asked the Progressive Party if they could run with a P after their name as well in Vermont. So the third party of the Progressive Party, I would say, has moved the dial. Obviously, Bernie Sanders has moved the dial a lot in Vermont and made room for conversations around things like Medicare, Medicaid for all, and many other issues. Myself, over 20 years fighting for those. So I think when it comes to building third parties, I think we should do that more. I think we need to do it from the ground up. I think it's a little bit politically foolish to just try to go for the top all the time. Run for local office, show folks that a third party isn't a wingnut situation, that you can govern well, you can get good schools, you can fix the roads, you can keep the streets clean, you can keep people safe, and then people's faith in you as credibility will grow, the parties will grow, and the other parties will have to adjust. And the Democratic Party in Vermont has adjusted quite a bit. They've definitely moved towards the Progressive Party on a number of issues. They passed $15 minimum wage. Of course, our Republican governor vetoed it. We've passed prescription drug import from Canada. Now it'll be up to the federal government whether they'll allow us to do that. But we tried doing that 10, 15 years ago, and we couldn't do it. And as the Progressive Party's gotten stronger in Vermont, as the issues keep getting talked about with credible voices, the Democratic Party's been getting better. So I think they're a long way. They still take corporate money. But I think it's important to build third parties. Just do it from the bottom up.
Sounds great. Wow. Well, Vermont has a very cool lieutenant governor, and it's really great that there's hope that we don't always have to elect neoliberals and the usual corporatists to public office, and I think it's really great that you won, and that's very gives me some optimism.
Well, I appreciate it. It's a challenge juggling family and a business and being LG, and then in Vermont and New Hampshire we actually have to run every 2 years. So I'm up again this year. Every 2 years it's back on, but hopefully this year will go well. The first race 2 years ago was certainly a tough one. I called it Bernie 2.0. Right. In state, there were a lot of Democrats working against me because I wasn't as true blue a D as they would want. Right. But for me, I'm fine carrying both labels. If I can keep making the Democratic Party better while also just focusing on issues, then I'm doing both things at once.
Awesome. So everybody support David Zuckerman if you're in Vermont, and if not, just keep him in your thoughts.
There you go.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.